I kind of like to blame Trump on a lot of things. I think that the surging of the DSA is, at least in part, corporate. Let's face it, corporate media wants ratings, and they seem to be loving the idea of establishing some fight within the Democratic Party, and that may be valid. But what I've not heard anyone say at any length anyway is, hey, how about the DSA as a reaction and response, and being fed up with what Trump has brought us, which is a complete deafness and blindness to the plight of so many people, that the other extreme has popped out as well. So they keep pitting Democrat against. You're missing part of this, which is Trump got us here, I think, in part.
No, Frank, I think you're absolutely right. I think there's a toxic combination of greed, selfishness, and hatred that is souring the belly of the nation. That ugliness, right, shadows our current days, and it's really difficult for the country to tell itself the truth about it, because we're, the ghosts have us by the nape of the neck, right? And because we're not honest about our past, we refuse to grow up as a nation. We're stuck in a kind of perpetual adolescence, in my view, because we don't want to be responsible for who we are and what we have done and what we are continuing to do, that we will tell ourselves lies. I mean, think about it. So the way in which we're talking, we got a historical parallel. When we look at the rise of fascism, right, and of course the Bolshevik Revolution, one's earlier than the other, but the Bolshevik Revolution and the way in Stalinism takes over, right? Yeah. Arthur Schlesinger writes a book entitled The Vital Sinner. And what he's trying to do in that moment is put forward a robust version of liberalism that could hold off fascism on the one hand and hold off communism on the other. So we get the first wave of the Red Scare, then we get the second wave of the Red Scare. And we know that second wave of the Red Scare happens at the same time that you get the second Reconstruction, the explosion of this effort to deal with the contradiction in the country.
Yeah.
So we're the ghost of the past are haunting us.
Yeah, no, we're in the Red Scare. We're in the Red Scare right now. There's a commie around every corner.
Every corner. At the very moment in which there are those forces.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're in the midst of crony capitalism.
Right.
Whatever you could believe in markets, but you don't have to believe in crony capitalism. To critique crony capitalism is not to deny the power of markets. We need to make that distinction. And then you got crony capitalism, and then you have this assault on the two pieces of legislation that fundamentally changed the country. One is the Immigration Act of 1965, the Hart-Celler Immigration Act, and the other is the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Yeah. There is a concerted effort on the part of what I take to be, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you're the national security guy. I take it to be that a gaggle of white nationalists have seized control of the executive branch of the United States government. Oh yeah,
and let's add a gaggle of wealthy white nationalists. Let's add that in for extra emphasis there. But you mentioned not taking responsibility. And I realize we could do 2 hours or an entire semester course on what responsibility might look like, but hit some highlights of what responsibility for what we are might look like.
Right. So, I mean, I think let's look at it in terms of contemporary foreign policy. Right. There's a way in which you can think about the history of U.S. relations with Iran and how we might tell ourselves a story about our role in domestic politics in Iran, the emergence of the Shah, what that means. There's one thing. Let's tell the story about our relationship to Cuba, right? And how that would look. Let's tell the story of our relationship to Haiti and what that would look like, right? But then let's tell ourselves the story domestically, right? I always tell my students, right, when we look at the emergence, like, how can I put this? At the same time that Jim Crow was being consolidated as the law of the land in the South, America was annexing country or bringing countries under its rule that had hundreds of thousands, millions of people of color, right? So our biggest export wasn't just simply baseball. It was also the ideology of white supremacy that was being used to organize the South in so many ways.
Right.
So what does it mean to tell that story? Not to say that the country is fated to be evil or insidious, that we condemn ourselves to the gallows because of our past. But what does it mean to tell ourselves that story in order to orient ourselves differently to the world?
Yeah.
It seems to me. And so those are just a couple of examples at the level of foreign policy and in the domestic domain. I can get even more specific, but you see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, no, I get it. But it's funny because it's not funny, but inevitably, based on my past experience with the show, I'll post clips of us talking. And the topic, and I can tell you right now, some of them will be bots, and some will be trolls, and some will just be MAGA folks who, fascinatingly, don't like us, but watch the show, and they'll say, you guys are woke. What you just said, seeing the world through other people's eyes and being informed by the Black experience, and this and that's woke. And of course, my response to that is, well, the opposite of woke is asleep, which I'd prefer not to be. So how do you respond to, folks who imply what you're doing is just woke? What do you say?
Well, first of all, I don't necessarily reply because I don't understand what they mean.
I don't either.
By woke. But, I usually invoke, because I'm an egghead, I'm a professor. So I say, have you read your Thoreau? Right? Have you read your Emerson? Sleepwalking, going back to your point, sleepwalking is a bad thing. It's not a good thing, right? And we're in a woke scare, just like we're in the third iteration of a red scare. And the woke scare, what does it mean to be woke? That is to say, you hold a position that folks shouldn't be discriminated against. Is that woke? Right. Is it woke to hold the view that if you work 40 hours a week, you should have a living wage and be able to keep a roof over your head, put food on the table, and send your kids to affordable college? Is that woke?
Right.
Is it woke that if you get sick, if your wife gets sick or your parents get sick, you don't need to go broke because healthcare is too expensive? Is that woke? So the question becomes, how do you make equivalent? How do you equate the fascism, quote unquote, of extreme MAGA with people who care about people close to the ground?
Right. What you do is what you just did is you bring this from an academic or esoteric discussion to a very pragmatic, boots on the ground. Here's where it touches you, discussion where they really would have trouble refuting that.